Emma was now 5, James was 3, and my new little baby, Jessica. In the rainforest, we were a long way from the town. We were an hour from the town. And I continued to investigate natural methods of healing. I learned about charcoal poultices on the chest if the children had chest colds. I learned about slicing onion and wrapping it in a cloth and putting it on their feet if they had a cold. But I did find when we moved to the rainforest, the children didn't get near as many colds. I looked back at Dora Creek and realised we'd backed onto a swamp, so a lot of the children's chest problems were due to the damp environment that we were living in. We started to grow our own vegetables. I had another home birth. There was my 4th child. And my 5th child, I was to have a home birth, but he came too quickly. And so I basically delivered him myself. I did go to the local hospital because we were so far out of town. But no one was around when that baby came, so I delivered him myself. A nurse's aide with a mop and bucket walked into the room just as I delivered the head. And then people came running from everywhere. That was quite an incredible experience. And I can see that as I was going through all this, God was teaching me. I found a verse in the Bible that I claimed often. It's Psalm 32 verse 8, where God says, I will instruct thee and teach thee in the way that thou shalt go. I will guide thee with mine eye. I clung to that verse. And then my baby Peter, who I delivered myself, he was my 5th baby. We went back home to the rainforest not long after he'd been born, in fact the next morning. When Peter was about, I think Peter was about 7 months old, he got a very bad cold. And I saw that he was having trouble breathing. I used all the things that I usually do to help with the breathing, and it didn't seem to help him very much. This concerned me. I could tell that he was really struggling with the breathing. But he recovered from the cold. And then 2 months later, by now he's about 9 months old, he got another cold. When children get colds, when you've got a whole family, one will get it, then the next one will get it. The children had a bit of a cough, but they recovered. But Peter had real struggle at trying to get breath. In fact, I was so fearing for him at one time that I called the children together because I'd read in James chapter 5 about verse 15. It says, the prayer of faith shall save the sick and the Lord shall raise him up. And it happened to be the children's memory verse. There was a little church that we would go to every few weeks. So I asked the children to come. The previous verse says, call the elders and they'll lay their hands on him and anoint with him with oil, and the prayer of faith shall save the sick. I could see Peter's chest was just thumping with every breath. So I called the children and I got them to lay their hands on him, and we prayed. And we claimed the promise that the prayer of faith shall save the sick and the Lord shall raise him up. And I said, thank you, children. Peter fell asleep. And he slept for a good hour. And when he woke up, he no longer had the breathing distress, and I thanked God for that. A few months later, Peter got another cold. His breathing distress was incredibly severe. I said to my partner, I need to take him to the doctor. He's struggling so much with breath. His whole abdomen would clamp with every breath. His nostrils would flare with every breath. And the mother heart knows when something is that severe, there's something wrong. So we took him to the hospital. It was an hour and a half away. When I brought him in, I could see by the look on the nurses' and doctors' face that this was very severe. They immediately gave him a Ventolin puffer for him to breathe, to open the bronchioles. The doctor said, your son has severe physiological asthma. This is why he was struggling so much. My little sister had asthma. I had memories of sitting by her bed. I was the elder sister. She was 8 years younger than me. She was very severe when she was 2, 3, 4, and I used to sit by her bed and I would read her stories and I would sing to her. I remember the ambulance coming to the hospital a couple of times. I often feared for the life of my little sister. She was my baby. My father had asthma, and I remember Dad would get me to, see, I was the elder sister. I was the helper in the home. I used to get his puffer, and it was a bulb, a rubber bulb, and it had glass tubing coming out of it and a cork, and he would put the medicine in and he would breathe. So you can see that when they said my son had asthma, I've immediately got these memories, these recollections. My father, my younger sister, it's come through in the genes.